Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, powered by Interstate Batteries. From your truck to your trail camera, Interstate Batteries has you covered. Visit your local Interstate Battery store today or online at interstatebatteries.com. Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. On this episode of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast, we're getting back into some tactical how-to stuff with our good friends at Northwoods Bear Products. And we're talking with one of the owners, Colby McReynolds. We're going to talk about baiting bears. We're going to talk about how to use commercial scents inside of baiting bears. So you can hear about some of their products, but mainly what we're trying to do is educate people on how to use their scent products, because if you're baiting bear, it just makes sense to be using commercial scents because they put off a more powerful scent profile than basically any natural base scent that you can have. Granted, there are some great natural scents that you can use as well. As we get into this is a little bit different than what we've been doing. Again, this is like a tactical podcast, that's what a lot of people want. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to tactics, but I'm also a sucker for a good story and just a fun time. So this is kind of both of those things combined. I also want to put in there the conservation angle, which I think is so important on everything that we do inside of bear hunting. Hunting over bait is often misperceived as many, many different things. But I'm here to tell you that some of the toughest hunting that I do are baited hunts, and they're do-it-yourself baited hunts that I do here in Arkansas and in Oklahoma. Baiting bears is a fantastic way for selective harvest inside of hunting. If you're targeting an older mature male, it's extremely challenging to target one and successfully take him over bait, but also baiting with cameras and using scents and all this stuff is a great way to be highly selective. So let me ask you a question. Inside of conservation, which guy is more honorable? The guy that goes out and shoots a younger juvenile bear using some other method, or the guy that's using bait, takes years before he harvests an animal and kills an older mature male over bait? That's probably not a real fair analogy, but from a conservation angle, the guy that's targeting the older mature males over bait is the conservation winner. Because, like for myself, I don't kill bear over bait every year in Arkansas and Oklahoma. Actually, I haven't killed a bear over bait in Arkansas, I think, since 2011. Granted, I have taken, I believe, 3 or 4 bears in Oklahoma over bait in the last 5 years. My point is that you can't just look at something and say, oh man, they're just putting out donuts and bait. That's not fair chase. That's not hunting. Man, it is. And you've caught me on my soapbox, because as hunters, I feel like we need to stand together. You know that, you hear me talk about all the time. But we also need to look at different parts of hunting as they are, which these baited hunts are conservation hunts, because they're taking place in places that spot and stalk hunting just could not fulfill the management goals of the science-based organizations that are designed to make bear populations thrive, like in Oklahoma, Arkansas, these places. Man, they want to take out a certain percentage of bears every year, and baiting is the only way that they can do it. And so that's what we do. So you're going to enjoy this podcast with my good friend Colby McReynolds of Northwoods Bear Products. And also Bernie Behringer's on here for a couple minutes. We're at the ATA show in Louisville, Kentucky. You're going to like it. Welcome to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. We are again at the ATA show, Archery Trade Association show 2019, Louisville, Kentucky, and we are at the Northwoods Bear Products booth. And I've got with me Colby and Bernie. And Colby, introduce yourself first. I'm not going to say much at all. Introduce yourself, and then we'll do the same for Bernie. And then I'll go ahead and tell everybody what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, I want to hear introductions from you guys. Then I want to hear from you, Colby. Colby's one of the owners of Northwoods Bear Products. I want to hear about your business as if someone who didn't know anything about it, like bear scents and what you guys do, because you produce bear scents for attracting bears for hunting. So I want to hear about that. And then we're going to talk, Bernie, and this is where you can get involved, is how we're using these products out in the field and how people can use this stuff. But and Northwoods has been a long-time partner of Bear Hunting Magazine, so I've known these guys. Bernie is a columnist in the magazine. But go ahead, Colby. Tell us who you are.
All right. Well, I'm Colby McReynolds, co-owner of Northwoods Bear Products. So I'm one of the owners, me, my dad, and Brian. He's over working the booth right now. We are all three equal part owners in Northwoods Bear Products, and it's exactly what you said. You know, we manufacture bear attractants, commercial scents for, the purpose of attracting bears, and it's mostly black bears, but we do actually, some of our stuff crosses over and does quite well with like grizzlies, browns, stuff like that. So,
So give me like a rundown of the types of products, like you have these dry powder scents.
Yep.
You have sprays. If you could categorize it.
Yeah, so our spray scents, they come in a little bit larger volume. They're a 32-ounce jug, and they're ready to pop a sprayer in and use as is. It comes with a sprayer, and the idea behind it is, use it as a cover scent and also as an attractant. Okay. So each time we're in and out of that bait, everybody baits at a little different rate. For us, when we're up in Minnesota, we can only get up there once a week. And in Wisconsin, we can bait every day. So when we're in Wisconsin, we go ahead and we spray that every time we're in and out. And I don't really get married to one spray scent. I may switch it up throughout the year. But the idea behind it is I spray it up in the trees around the area. Our spray scents will spray out, 20, 30 feet. You can fine mist it, or you can shoot it, and cover some distance. So I like to get that up and around the tree stand prior to when we go in there to hunt. So it's just kind of, they're used to that scent up in the air, and that way it does work well as a cover scent, when you do actually go in to hunt. So that's one, that would be the application for the spray scents.
Yeah. How long has Northwoods been in business?
So we've actually been in business for about 12 years. We have made our own attractants for going on 30 years.
Now, did your dad start the business?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
my dad did. At the time, I was still kind of a young buck when he when he started the business up.
You were
and
wanting
I was,
to make like bubblegum scent.
yeah,
stuff.
everything. Yeah, you bet. Cheerios.
Yeah.
So no. So as it started, this was just something that we were kind of messing with. Just honestly. We were hunting bears, and that's where our focus was, and we were trying to do whatever we could to either outperform, our competition.
Yeah.
And so we started manufacturing our own, scents, and they've all evolved over the years. But what started out is buying just a little bit of anise at the grocery store, and things you pick up along the way, and it just kind of started from there, and it branched out and got bigger. And I guess the biggest thing was the people that did come and hunt with us saw the success we were having, and I think we related it a lot back to the use of attractants. And so, we were getting a lot of people along the way saying, hey, you guys should really start up a business and, and market this stuff. So that's kind of how it got started.
That's where you are.
Yeah, yep.
Well, to me, that is a great segue in here to talking with Bernie Behringer, because as a person who baits bear myself in Arkansas and Oklahoma, and I hunt in Canada every year, and some people don't understand why you need to use commercial scents, because they're like, well, the bait that we're using already has scent properties. And the truth is, you could put out a bait with just your bait, and you could get bears to come into it without commercial scent. But the reason we use it is because this stuff is way more powerful than just about any natural scent that you're going to be able to have. So you're going to attract more bears. The bears are going to get this oil-based stuff on their feet, on their fur, on their pads. They're going to track it all over. So it basically amplifies the scent signature of your bait dramatically. But before we jump into that, tell us who you are, Bernie.
All right, Bernie Behringer. I'm just a guy that's addicted to bear hunting and been doing it for about 20 years and have killed a few bears.
Yeah. Well, and you're more than that. You're a columnist in Bear Hunting Magazine.
I'm a full-time outdoor writer and a columnist, and I have a YouTube channel that has a lot of bear hunter followers too.
Yep.
So yeah.
And you run Bucks, Bulls, and Bears.
Bucks, Bulls, and Bears, the weekly email news blast. Yeah, and I've been sponsored by Northwoods Bear Products for several years, and I love their products, and it's very, very easy for me to promote them. So. Yeah. You mentioned that you could go out and put a bear bait out without any scent and still probably attract some bears. Well, you could also drive a Pinto station wagon instead of an Escalade too if you want. But these really make all the difference in the world. In particular, I like their Gold Rush. It's a super concentrated formula that you mix with cooking oil.
Yes.
And you can put 1 or 2 ounces in 5 gallons of cooking oil, and it is incredible the way it smells. I open all my baits. When I put a new bait out, that's what I use nowadays to open all the baits. And if I could describe what it smells like, it's sort of like a butterscotch caramel. If you're familiar with like Werther's candy, you know how addicted those things are? That's kind of what it's like. And the bears, they really, really like it, and it's super loud, very strong. So I use that for opening all the baits. When I put out a bait, I like to say I use 3 levels. I like stuff on the ground, I like stuff at the bear's level, and I like stuff up high. Yeah. And that kind of covers all of the whatever wind direction you're going to have and thermals and everything like that. So, the Gold Rush, that's the ground. I spread that on all around the bait and stuff like that. And then the spray scents.
Hey, let me stop you right there with the Gold Rush, because I want to talk specifically about that.
Okay.
Because to me, that is one of the that's my favorite product that you guys make. It really is. And I want to say too that I am not a gadget guy. I mean, like, I don't want to sit here with you guys and promote a bunch of stuff that I don't believe that people need. I mean, that's just the truth. This stuff, if you're baiting bears, is the real deal. And Bernie said you mix it with oil. You can mix it with used fryer grease.
Right.
Used fryer grease is a commodity that's relatively easy to get from restaurants. You get 5 gallons of fryer grease. And this Gold Rush, I've got a bottle here in my hand. It comes in 8 ounce bottles, and that will treat up
40
to
gallons.
40 gallons of grease. And I'll tell you what I do. A lot of times I mix it a little hotter.
Don't tell people that, but that's what I do too.
I mean, it does. It will absolutely.
It works so good that you just want to add extra. You
Yeah.
you love putting it out there.
Yeah, but to me, what the reason the fryer grease is so good is because it is a caloric. It has caloric value.
Right.
I mean, like it's something that the bears eat, but it's also it's oil based, and so it has the ability to stick on stuff, not be as influenced by moisture to dissipate, get all over the bear's fur, his feet, all over him, and then he leaves, and he's leaving scent trails. Because when you're baiting bear, the biggest thing you're trying to do is attract as many bears as possible from as far away as possible, and the more scent signature that you can have on that bait that's not going to evaporate, that's not going to go away within 3 days, is better. And man, that fryer grease stuff, that Gold Rush, you can go back to a bait weeks after you've baited,
The next year.
and you still smell it.
The next year you start digging in the dirt, and it's like I can smell it the next year.
Yes,
it's crazy.
It is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and Colby mentioned something before we started the podcast. I've used the Gold Rush to make scent drags to get bait started.
Sure.
I think you've done that too before, Bernie. But where you start a bait, and then whether you tie a rag to a four-wheeler on a rope and you drive down logging roads that lead, starting at your bait, or whether you go on foot. What I've done a couple times is gone on foot into areas, dragging a rag covered in North Gold Rush.
Yeah.
And had tremendous response of bears finding it quick. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to say also then that, I like to get stuff up high, like he mentioned spraying stuff up in the trees and things like that. And I found that the specific smells that are really good in the fall tend to be more like the fruit type smells, the natural foods type smells, the blueberry, cherry, and things like that. In the spring, stuff like beaver castor has been really good for me in the spring. It's good year round, but
Right.
Particularly in the spring, that would be my number one choice. So I got it up high, I got it on the ground, and then people talk about bears tracking stuff around. Well, I like to get the stuff on the bear's fur, so I'll see the trails that they're coming in, and I'll spray the bushes along the sides of the trails where they're coming in and out of the bait. And then I just carry a bottle with me every time I bait, and I just freshen it up a little bit. And I'm a little different than some people. He says, he likes to use a lot of different ones. Bears are all individuals. They kind of have personalities. That's really not the right word for it, but they are individuals and have individual
characteristics.
And some bears are, especially mature males, can be really much more intimidated by the bait package of smells, which includes the bait and the lures that you're using and your own personal scent and stuff like that. And if you change up too much on some of those big mature males, it can throw them off a little bit. They might back off. So I tend to use the same. I pick one smell that I think is going to be good, and I just try to use the same one at each bait, and just carry a bottle with me every time I go in.
That's a good topic, and I'd like to hear from either one of you. And I think I know your opinion. You just said it, but it seems like the rational thing would be, well, multiple types of scents. Like let's try the Gold Rush, and then let's try the Cherry Burst, and let's try this. Just thinking that they're going to be appealed to like a buffet style scent. But what you're saying is that you don't like to do that.
Well, I don't like to change it up in midstream, I guess is what I'm saying, because, the bears become accustomed to the smells and sights of the bait package. And it's not necessarily true of smaller ones.
Just introducing something new to them that they're going to have to
a big mature
with.
male, he's skittish about this bait anyway. He walks in there like, I really shouldn't be here. That's kind of the way they come in.
Yeah.
And so if you introduce something completely different in midstream, like after a week or 10 days, he might just go, I think I'm just going to back off and wait till dark today because I don't really like this. So that's why I continue to use the same lure and I'll even make notes. I'm using cherry at this one, and I'm using blueberry at this one, and gold mist at this one, or whatever.
And I think the principle that you're tapping on there is just consistency. Because at a bait site, you're trying to produce something that's very consistent, because in the natural world, consistency means safety. If that bear knows that, and consistency even like when you go to the bait and how many people you take in there. I mean, like you want to you want to just do the same thing and be regimented as much as possible every time, so that would even fall into scents. You're saying use the same kind of scent.
Yeah, that's my preference. Colby, you and your dad been doing this for a long time. I'll let you talk about it a little bit. I know that I disagree with his dad. His dad's real hard to disagree with. I'll just tell you that right up front. He's pretty bullheaded. I guess that's a kind way to put it.
Yeah.
But we don't agree on everything, but we both kill bears. So Colby, want to address this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I'll go back with what I said prior. I'm not necessarily married to a specific spray scent, and I mean, as far as like a specific flavor, I won't just stick with that for the full year. What I guess I meant by that is I may have a dozen bait sites, and one of them might be exactly what Bernie said. I might have a combination of blueberry spray scent, cherry burst with the powder, and then I use, the Gold Rush, also.
Yeah.
And the next bait site down the road, I might be using cinnamon spray scent with a gold dust powder and the Gold Rush, So I'll mix it up, just to see what kind of reaction we get, on different baits. Now, I do stay consistent with that bait, what scent I'm using. And if I do switch it up, I don't just switch it up for one night and then go back to something else. If I switch it up, I'll stay consistent with that pattern, for sure a week, and just, try something new. If you've got long periods of time that, like in Wisconsin, we can bait from April 15th all the way through October.
So that's a long
we've got many months to play with things and try out different,
I think for me to chime in on this with what I do, I just don't like to use a new spray or new loud scent like 2 days before I'm hunting.
Yep.
So I use different scents on a bait, but I don't like to introduce something new, because I've heard of stories where guys, like a hunter coming on a guided hunt, brings his own scent. The outfitter's never used that scent before.
Yep.
He comes in and just douses this area. Into a bear, that's loud. It's like screaming in his ear.
Absolutely.
To us, it's, we can smell it, but to a bear, that's his primary interaction
Something
with the
new.
world. It's through his nose.
Yep.
And I've heard people, I've never experienced it, but I've heard people say they've seen bears come in and be like, wait a minute, this place didn't smell like 10,000 cherries dropped out of the sky yesterday. And so it kind of gets them on edge. But let me ask you a question, Colby. What is, and let me give context to the question. Regionally, different flavors might do better, and you've experienced that too, Bernie. Have you seen a flavor that's the best? And I realize you're a businessman, so you don't want to pigeonhole people into buying one thing because it's just worked for you. But is there a scent that worked? Because that's my question. And I've used a ton of them, and I honestly can't say that I've seen like a tangible difference between one or the other, aside from the Gold Rush, which it's just a different product. Between the Gold Rush, which is a concentrated fryer grease additive, to the spray, to the powders. I feel like the concentrated stuff, but amongst flavors. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, it is. And I'll say the same thing. I think far and away Gold Rush is the most popular. It's our favorite product to use while we're out, hunting, and it's just.
Did your dad melt down Werther's Originals and put it in
exactly
canola oil?
No.
Back in the 90s, he was melting them down.
Yeah. No, it's a combination of a few things, and it just works well together. And like you said, that marriage it with the fryer oil, it's just the perfect combination. It sticks to the trees, gets all over everything. They can drag it throughout the woods on their paws and hair. But back to your question. Regionally, I will say, like we do the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania show. See a lot of outfitters there, and it's fun to talk with them because they'll buy a wide variety of spray scents, and then they all, over the next couple of years, they each have their own. We've got one outfitter that just swears by Beaver Cast. That's all he uses. That's all he'll buy. That's all he uses with the Gold Rush. Doesn't really do much with the powders. Now we've got another outfitter that is, not too far. They're not overly far from one another. He swears by blueberry, and that's all he does, is blueberry powder, blueberry spray scent, and Gold Rush. So, it's I think it's a lot to do with personal opinion and what you perceive your bears, how they're reacting to the scent that you're putting out. I can't say that I have, a far and away favorite, right? That just outperforms everything else. I tend to lean on blueberry a lot when I'm in Minnesota. Only, just.
Let me ask you a question. Do you like blueberries?
I do.
That's why. Okay, there it is. You confirmed
exactly.
it. You confirmed it,
and that's why. So
that's the way I pick it. I'm like, when I get multiple kinds of Northwoods every year, and I think it depends on whether I'm hungry or not.
Right.
Like I'm like, do I get the blueberry or the donut? Oh, donut sounds good.
Right, exactly.
I'm kind of being funny, but I'm being serious too.
No, and you're right.
I think a lot of it, this is what I've always tried to understand, is a bear doesn't perceive the world like a human does.
Right.
And we know that from the way that they interact with bait. A bear would rather eat a white oak acorn as he would a glazed donut.
Yep.
To us, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, so I feel like they're interacting with the scent different than we are.
Yeah.
And so, we're trying to humanize them in a way, like, oh, he'd like a donut.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's negative. I'm just saying probably any of them would work. That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you. And I think any of them will work. And I think we gravitate to the ones that are more potent. The ones that reach out and slap you in the nose. That's the ones we gravitate to. Oh my gosh, that smells so powerful. So it's unbelievable. To you and I, it is. They can smell. What is it? 300,000 times better than you and I. So
a lot better.
It's unbelievable. So like I said, we gravitate towards those that are more pungent and everything, and what we associate with that region. Like in Minnesota, we got a lot of blueberries. Wisconsin,
and that's a valid point. Is that what you were going to talk about?
I was going to mention that. I think that people, I worked a booth with these guys quite a bit. People come walking by and they look and they go, "Oh yeah, they got a blueberry scent. We got blueberries in our area. Bears probably eat blueberries. We'll try that." It's either that or it's like you say, where this one, I'd like to put this one on my pancakes. I'm going to take this one, So, everybody judges different. But the reality is what we're doing here is we're just putting a scent in the air that a bear walks downwind and he goes, I got to walk over there and check that out. That's really all we're doing. Yeah. And all of the flavors will do that at the right times. And, I keep saying this, but bears are individuals, and some of them will prefer a candy scent.
Yes.
And some of them will prefer a fruit scent, and some of them will prefer more of like the beaver caster or something like that. So it's really hard to say which one could be the best.
I'll never forget when I first started baiting bears in Arkansas, I heard a lady that was I just remember who she was. She's become a friend of mine. She told me a story, and at the time it was something I'd never seen, but she said she one day put out these little fried pies, like a blueberry pie and a lemon pie, like you'd buy at a gas station, just like individually wrapped. And she said a bear came in, and he picked through those pies, and when he would bite into a lemon pie, he would spit it out. And then he'd go, and I learned that they're just like us.
Yeah, they are. They're just like us. They have specific flavors. I had some. I bought a bunch of gummy bears one time, and one of the boxes that accidentally got thrown in was sour gummy bears. And I gave that. It was like I put it out. The bears didn't eat it. And another guy saw him at the Lucky 7 Bear Bait when I was there the next time. I said, I tried those sour gummy bears. And the guy's like, oh, man, I use the heck out of those. They work great. I'm like, the bear that came in wouldn't eat them.
Yeah.
So they're all different. And it's funny how bears will pick through a bait. And one bear will come in and he'll dig through all the sweets and he'll dig down to the beef fat or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And I had a situation
There's certain
where
times a year when they do that.
Yeah.
They'll wade through all the donuts to get to. I've seen one wade through donuts later in the fall season and grab a beef bone and crunch it.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're like, wait a minute, you're crunching on a rotten bone.
Yeah.
Rather than eating these fresh donuts. But just for that time of year, that's what they wanted.
And one time I had a guy had a fruit stand that gave me a bunch of watermelons. And I took these watermelons and put them out on my bear baits, and I come back the next 2-3 days, and these watermelons are just sitting there. And I'm like, oh, I guess they don't want watermelon. I just kind of kicked one of them and to look inside of it, see if it was rotten or something like that, and it looked okay to me. Well, I come back the next day, and every watermelon was completely cleaned up. Well, they just never opened it, I guess. But once it was open, they smelled it and they ate it. So,
I mean, there's not many watermelons in the Minnesota bush up
no,
there?
not too many. It doesn't. Watermelons don't do well. That and alligators, they don't do well in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to go to a meeting, man. It's been great
Bernie.
talking with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything that you've done, and thanks for Northwoods Bear Products, man. I got a great relationship with them. I love their products, and they've helped me kill a lot of bears. So, thanks, man.
Right on, Bernie. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Well, Colby, I think I started off by talking about how, well, let me back up. Anybody that's baiting bears, if you're going to invest the time and energy into gathering bait, putting out a bait site, you need to be using commercial sense. And there's tons of guys in the bear baiting community that don't, because it does cost money.
Yeah.
It is another thing that you have to buy. But my whole point to people is, and again, the purpose being of this, not even as much to sell as Northwoods Bear Products, but just to get people using sense in general.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole concept of it.
Yeah.
Is that it's going to you're going to attract more bears, and over a period of time, you're going to end up being able to kill the bear you want, because it's just another layer to your strategy of attraction.
Yeah.
And so, just in general, if you're baiting bears and you're not using commercial sense, you're missing out. And then, obviously, we want to buy from you guys,
Right.
And it's great stuff. So that's not what I'm saying. My point is that this isn't a sales pitch. This is a pitch to, man, if you're gonna be putting in this energy and effort, try it.
Yeah.
Try it. And I have some. To me, the most beneficial time that I've used these has been in starting a bait. And talk to me about like how you like to use it, and so do I, throughout the baiting sequence.
Yep.
But like, how do you use it?
Okay, so we're speaking right now about Gold Rush is the product that we're talking about.
Okay.
And we use it the same way. That is absolutely how we fire up every single one of our bait sites. We mix Gold Rush with fryer oil, shake it up. This last year, I actually, usually what I do is I'll take 5 gallons of fryer oil, I'll take an ounce or 2 of Gold Rush, pour it in there, shake it up, dump the majority of it on the ground in front of the bait site, take the last little bit and maybe throw it up, head high, just to kind of cover that, I guess zone 2 as Bernie described it, This year, however, I wanted to try something new. I used the grease, and I put it in a 1 gallon spray pump, like a weed sprayer. Okay. And so I had a gallon of grease, and I added just basically a cap full of Gold Rush. So same ratio, and pumped that baby up, and I sprayed it on the ground, sprayed it everywhere, and I was just able to kind of broaden that area that I was dispersing the Gold Rush into. Now I was able to shoot it at a stream out further behind the bait site, whereas when you're pouring it out, you're concentrating right on in front of the bait site. They're stepping in it, and that's great.
What you're doing is you're increasing the surface area of that product so that air, it can disperse better.
Yes, yep. And then I would spray it down the trails that where they were walking in on. Just, the same concept of getting it, in the hair follicles, even on their pads and everything. And they're taking that out. They're doing the work for you at that point.
They're doing the work.
So they're really spreading that out for you. And the calling power of Gold Rush is really unbelievable. I'll tell a short story about an outfitter in northern Saskatchewan that very skeptical. Outfitters are by far the hardest sell. They've been doing it for a very, very long time at a very high level. And so anything new, they're very skeptical about.
Anything they've got to spend money on.
Yeah, you bet. And so we were having a discussion with one, and I said, well, hey, why don't you just try one single bottle of Gold Rush out on one bait, and we'll see what happens, And so he agreed to that. So what ended up happening, and the exact numbers I don't remember, but it was somewhere around 2 Boone and Crockett bears and 4 Pope and Young bears in 1 week time came off the same bait, and the only bait they used Gold Rush on.
Really?
And a bait, one of the Boone and Crockett bears that came to this bait was completely nocturnal, 8 miles away. Never had visited that bait site before, showed up there during the daylight, and they got that bear. And they had been after that bear for a few years. And so he was completely sold from that point, and just blew him away, and they joke about it. The guys that were in the camp that week, we've talked to a few of them, we're friends with a few of them, and they were like, it was just, it was crazy, that they cherished that 1 8-ounce bottle of Gold Rush like it was actual gold, And so it was a neat story, and we've got multiple stories like that, especially.
I want to tell one too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this would be the kind of story that I hear more of. My good friend, I call him the bear baiting Jedi of Arkansas, Ryan Greb. He's been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
He and again, this story wasn't. He didn't make a big deal of this. He just told me this. Is he had a buddy in Oklahoma that was baiting bears, had a marginal property. It was a property that didn't really attract that many bears, but it was the private land this guy had access to. It's all he had. He put out a bear bait there, and I want to say he had the bait out for like 3 weeks, and he had, I don't remember what he was baiting with, but it was good stuff.
Yep.
Not a single hit on the bait. He calls Ryan and says, "Ryan, what should I do?" Ryan Greb said, "You need to buy a bottle of Gold Rush." The guy bought it, put out Gold Rush, and in 2 days had his first hit on the bait.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it does. And to go back even a little bit more in depth on the original story I told about using a drag rag.
Yes.
A couple years ago, baiting in Oklahoma, put out a bear bait in a place where it was an established bait. I'd baited there 1 year before. Typically in baiting bears, if bears remember where food is at certain times, and so typically once you get going, it's pretty easy to keep them coming in.
Yeah.
I'd baited 1 year before, so I thought, well, next year it'll even be better. I went out and put out my bait I waited pretty late. I waited like 2 weeks before season. Put out my bait, came back 8 days later, and nothing had been to the bait, which was really surprising. And I was like, what's going on here? And that's when I did the Gold Rush drag rag just by foot. I cut off some paracord, put about a 4-foot strip hanging off my ankle, and went for a hike over into another scent area. Like in the mountains where we're hunting, Colby, and it's probably maybe the same way where you're hunting, but like you might have your bait down in this valley, and if the wind patterns aren't right, that scent is kind of contained.
Right, yeah.
And so I find that if you can
get up on a
get
ridge,
a drag over into the next valley, or get it out into another opening. What I did on this one was I walked down the creek to where it hit a bigger creek, and then walked down the bigger creek and basically spread out that scent signature.
Yeah.
And in like 8 hours, or I can't remember. I don't want to lie. It may not have been. It may not have been 8 hours. It was within hours, 24 hours maybe at most. Can't remember. There was a bear.
You obtained your goal. You had a bear
at the
was
bait
there,
site. And it actually worked out great because my strategy that year was to wait until close to season to bait. I didn't want to bait them for 2 months.
And why was that? Was there other competition within the area?
Well, partly took a half a day to bait that one spot.
Yeah.
By the time I drove there, and it was way back in. And I've found in Arkansas, when we're competing against Natural Food Source in the fall, it's easy to hold a bear for a week.
Yep.
It's hard to hold a bear for a month.
Yeah.
And so if you can hit it just right and start later, sometimes you can hold a bear.
Yep.
And every year I go back and forth. Sometimes I like to do that, sometimes I don't. But that year it bit me in the rear end because, at first anyway.
Right.
And I baited 2 weeks before. 8 days in, still didn't have a bear. So I was like, doggone, should have baited earlier.
Right.
But then the Gold Rush saved me. And when that first bear showed up, then all the bears showed up. It was just like they were just out of that area. They were just somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they just needed a hint.
Yeah. We've had certain scenarios that are exactly the same, existing bait sites that we've had for 20 years, you bait them the first week, and it should be like clockwork. You should have 5-6 bears in there, and you come back, and there isn't. We had that this year in Minnesota where we were at. And, so I think that might be a little bit of a misconception too. I think everybody thinks that, well, Clay Newcomb started a bear bait. There's going to be 30 bears on that bait site. It doesn't always come easy, and we got to work for it and change maybe not our philosophy, but the way we do things a little bit.
Every year can be a little bit different.
Yeah, so, and I love the fact that you brought up that you do only bait 2 weeks prior to the season, or maybe that's one way you've tried it and had some success now with it, because we see it both ways. We get the question a lot. Even outfitters in Wisconsin, there's a very large time frame that they can bait in Wisconsin, and Canada, and other parts of the country as well. And in Minnesota, we can only bait 2 weeks prior to the season opener, and we have a ton of success in Minnesota. And so then, there isn't quantity limitations, though, or anything like that, where in Wisconsin, and I speak to Wisconsin a lot because that's what I'm most familiar with, and that's where I'm from.
And maybe that would be a good place to give us an overview of – a lot of people might not be familiar, but like in some of the northeastern states, there's no baiting, but you can use scent.
Yes.
You can use a certain amount of scent, like in
Up to
New
2
York,
ounces.
and where else?
So New York and New York's the first one that comes to mind.
Pennsylvania, can they use scent?
No, they can't use anything at all. Nope.
Okay.
But we do a show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and that draws a lot of people from their surrounding states. And so I can't remember the exact rules and regulations to each and every state.
But it's a small amount of scent that you can't use feed scents.
Right. Yep. Like North Carolina just opened up bear baiting this year, and it is. Hang on, Brian needs a bottle of blueberry here. Oh, the spray scent. Here you go. North Carolina opened up a bear baiting season this year, and they can use like corn. I want to say they can use peanuts, but there can't be anything refined products.
Bait.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. It's got to be all natural. But a lot of those states up around that PA area can use up to 2 ounces. And so that's where our powders, and especially the Gold Rush, in a format that isn't mixed with the grease, really comes into play. We do a little test where we'll tip the bottle of Gold Rush upside down, just let a little bit run into the cap, take the cap off, and wipe it out with a Q-tip, yep, and hold it in front of their face, and they can't have it within 4 feet because it's just so pungent, and so it really grabs their attention because in a scent wick application, it works really well as well. So, those states that, are, listening maybe and are saying, man, I'd love to be able to do that. I just can't. We can't bait. We can only use up to 2 ounces, of any sort of attractant. So there you go. I mean, our Gold Rush can be used as a scent wick. Our spray scents can be used as a scent wick as well. Gold Rush is going to last a little longer, a little more pungent, really gets out there. The powders are super, super potent, as you know.
Yes.
It's very hard to explain over, a podcast just how potent they are.
Right.
That scent really travels. And the best part about the powders themselves, they're 500 times sweeter than sugar. It's not considered a bait, it's considered an attractant, and you can go ahead and sprinkle that out on logs and stuff and just even on the ground, anything that will absorb a little bit of water or something that makes that much stronger.
Yeah.
And they really, really,
what I like
enjoy
about
to play
the powders when I use them is that it's not messy.
No, it's not at all.
All the other stuff is oil-based.
Yeah.
It's kind of, when you're carrying around a bottle of Gold Rush, it's kind of like you're carrying around a bomb.
You really are.
Like if it spills in your car, it's a good smell, but your car's going to smell like Gold Rush.
For a long time.
But point being, some people, like I can throw this in a backpack, and because I have been doing some remote bait sites.
Yep.
Where I'm carrying stuff in.
I can't wait to hear more about those.
And but anyway, so it's kind of nice to have a dry powder base.
It sure is.
And it is super strong. You open it up, and it's super strong.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. So.
Yeah. Well, man, that's good. My main objective was just to kind of familiarize people with your products, talk a little bit about how we're using them.
Yep.
And, not everybody's going to bait bears, but there's a lot of states that can bait bears.
Yeah.
All the Canadian provinces except British Columbia and none of it in some of the real northern provinces don't.
Right.
But, They can bait bears on private land in New Jersey and North Carolina. They can bait bears. Arkansas, Oklahoma, a lot of the western states, the Great Lakes states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan can bait bears. I mean, I don't know. I think there's like 17 states or something. I can't remember.
It's somewhere in there, and there's a few that, like North Carolina just added theirs, and so there's a few more popping up, and I guess I'm not sure 100% on the regulations in Florida.
Well, there's no hunt in Florida right now.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they took it away, and I don't know if there's any foreseeable future in bringing that back or not, but I sure hope so.
Yeah, I hope it comes back too. And Colby, every time I'm talking about bear hunting, I always want to tie it back into conservation, which I feel like has got to be on the lips of every bear hunter in 2019, is that, we're talking about using scents to attract bears. The end goal of this is that we could be selective in our harvest.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, and that's the way we should look at it, is that conservation-based hunting means that we are very selective in which animal we take.
Yep.
That's why I use scent products, commercial scents on my baits, is I'm trying to get that older, mature male where I can take him out of the population.
Yep.
To me, to somebody that didn't understand baiting, they're like, oh, man, these guys are, using these high-powered scents to draw in bear. Well, there's a conservation side to it, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if all you can draw into your bear, if you can draw in 5 animals rather than 3, there's a better chance in that 5 animals that you're going to have one that's an older, mature male that is the right one to take out of the population. That's also the right one that we're after as hunters too. We want to kill a big bear. We're not hiding that fact.
No, yeah.
But that's
absolutely.
also the bear that we need to take out from a conservation perspective. He's already contributed to the gene pool. He's done his job. He's the perfect one to take out.
Yep.
So, this is a tool.
Yeah.
A tool for that. But man, hey, thanks for being on the podcast, man.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It was great to listen to you and Bernie converse back and forth, and Bernie's a great guy to be around.
He really thinks analytically about bear baiting. I mean, probably more than anybody that I know.
We all tend to do
nerd
that.
Out.
Really, yeah.
Nerd out. Well, cool. Well, hope you guys have a great ATA show. And,
it's been good.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. Check out Bear Hunting Magazine. We're the only print bear hunting magazine in the world. Big fish in a really small pond, but that's what makes us awesome. And check out our YouTube channel. You'll see I've got quite a few YouTube videos, especially the vlogs that we were doing back in the summer that highlighted the Northwoods stuff. We do some Northwoods giveaways every year. And so check out our YouTube channel. And any closing thoughts, Colby?
No. Just I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, man. Well, keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer is going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24th, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.